The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. This is Peter Schmitting speaking. Welcome to the second webinar for the InterCor TESTFEST on PKI and security. We have 18 attendees so far, so I guess we just wait a minute or two to give other people a chance to connect. So just a little bit of patience. So good morning again to the ones that just arrived. I think we start now. If some more people come in a bit later, there is no problem, as the first part is a bit the overview of the project anyway. So the ones that have been to the first webinar will remember that section, because it's actually the same. The changes will be in the later part of the webinar, where Munira and Hassan will explain more about test cases and how certificates can be used during the TESTFEST. So to come back, I'm Peter Schmitting. I'm working for Ertico, and in the InterCor project I'm the activity leader for the TESTFEST activity. The speakers will be Hassan Fouchal of the University of France, Champagne-Ardenne, and Munira Msali from IDnomic. Some notes about the webinar moderation. As you've read, I'm the moderator. You are all being muted because we can't have 50 people speak at the same time, but you can ask questions. For that you use the control panel to write your question during the presentation, and ideally you should refer to a slide number in your question so that it's easier to identify what you are asking about. And during the time Munira and Hassan are going to talk about their topics, I will monitor that question panel and interrupt from time to time to answer that questions. The whole webinar will be recorded, And in the end, the recorded webinar will be posted on the InterCor website. You see the link here. And on that website, you will also find further information like the specifications in use and especially question answer section that will be based on the questions that have been asked since the first webinar and that will be asked at the present webinar. And we expect to have that ready somewhere next week, and this will be on the InterCor website, so you can have a look at that. Of course, you can still always contact me and Hassan to ask further questions that you have. So, the content of the webinar. First, I give a little introduction to InterCor, and then I will talk a bit about what the TESTFEST is. Then Hassan will take over and will present the test center and the test track and talk about test scenarios and test cases. Sorry, I see that you can't see my slides, so maybe I made some mistake when so I hope now you can see my screen. Sorry, that was a mistake for me. There are just too many let's say, buttons on this webinar control panel. I hope you can see my slides now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry for that. I'm not such an experienced webinar moderator, so please forgive me. But now you should see the contents of the webinar. As I said, I'm going to do the introduction and something on objectives of the TESTFEST. Then Hassan is going to talk about test center, test track, about the test scenarios. Munira is going to talk about certificate matters. On that we had received a lot of questions, so I hope we can answer them. Then there will be a bit on the schedule and the program. Then something on preconditions and participation and the expected outcome and the follow-up. So let's go into the InterCor. What is it? InterCor is a study and it's in 4 member states, so in the UK, France, the Netherlands and Belgium, and it's part of the 10T core road networks which connects the North Sea with the Mediterranean to the Arc Atlantic corridor. So you see here on this map, you see where it's located. The project itself is a CEF project, so Connecting Europe Facility Project. It started 2016 in September. It runs 3 years and ends in August 2019. The budget is 30 million euros, of which 50% are funded. There are 16 partners from 4 EU member states, and the leaders in each member state are, for the Netherlands, the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and the Environment, which also act as the coordinator of the project. Then the French Ministry for Ecology, Sustainable Development and Energy, that's for France, and for Belgium it's the Flemish Department of Mobility and Public Works, and for the UK it's the Department of Transport. And each of these member states will run a pilot site in their respective country. The objective is to streamline and pilot Day 1 services in the 4 member states, and also to do a first assessment of CITS services on freight and logistics, and by building on a common hybrid communication architecture between the 4 member states. So the traffic management services are in-vehicle signage, probe data, roadwork warning and CLOSA, and there are some freight logistics services, truck parking, multimodal cargo optimization and tunnel logistics. And This, what we're talking about, is the second TESTFEST in that project. TESTFEST is an international interoperability event. 4 TESTFESTs are planned, one for each in each member state. So we already had the first TESTFEST last year in July in the Netherlands, in Dordrecht, where we had about 30 participating countries, so it was quite a big event, where the services Roadworks Warning, IVS and broke vehicle data were tested. The TESTFEST we're talking about now is on PKI. It's going to take place, as you know, from April 23 to 26 in Reims, in and around Reims, and there will be Roadworks Warning and broke vehicle data and OHLN. That's the one I always forgot what it means. So, but Hassan is going to talk in detail about it. Then the next TESTFEST is going to take place in October from 8 to 13 in UK. This is on hybrid communication. That means ITS, G5 and cellular. And it's most likely going to cover the services Roadworks Warning, IVS, broke vehicle data and closer, but this is not 100% confirmed yet. And then the last TESTFEST, it was supposed to be on logistics services. It's still written there, but now we are thinking within the project to make that more like a roadshow style with cars equipped with onboard units of all 4 member states of the project, plus invited other guests to drive to all 4 member states for 2-3 weeks and try out if the equipment works in all 4 member states. And this is planned for the first quarter of 2019. We are still looking at the scheduling, and so more information on that will be available probably somewhere in May. So now a TESTFEST. As I said before, it's an international interoperability event. What does that mean? So the idea is to demonstrate the large-scale interoperable deployment of CITS through the 4 member states, so Netherlands, Belgium, UK and France, and to show that we have a cross-border interoperability by this interoperability testing, that security and certification is working cross-border, that there's a seamless continuity of service, and that operation and maintenance work. So if you have a French-equipped car and you drive into the Netherlands, your services should still work. And the next thing is on a broader scale, to provide the CITS services on a broader scale by using hybrid communication. So to utilize a combination of cellular and ITS G5 communication. And then there's a common evaluation framework to evaluate the real-life benefits of these services. That is a special activity in the InterCor project. And for PKI, I think that's the last slide I'm going to do, so maybe I'm not the biggest PKI expert, but afterwards you get the real experts, Hassan and Monira, and they can give you more details. So the second TESTFEST is concentrating on the public key infrastructure with the authentication of messages sent from different ITS stations. The main goal is that the rollout of interoperable PKI services is working, and to verify that the message authentication and the trust chain are working. The whole focus is on service interoperability. It's not like a product interoperability testing. Well, and what is going to happen? Participants in the TESTFEST will come with their onboard user devices from different vendors' countries, and they will test against the roadside units that are in a given set of test scenarios that Hassan is going to talk about. And now I have a look if there are some questions. No, it's not that people say they can see it now, so I guess that's a while ago. So I think now it's Hassan's part to take over. So I would ask Hassan to continue now.
Thank you, Peter. So I will talk a little bit about the test center and the trajectory that will be used to run the tests. As you see here, it's a loop coming from the university, which is in the here as a blue part, which blue ring. We go, yeah, not blue one, up, yes, no, in the right one, yes, there. All the headquarters will be here, and then after that, we have to go through the loop. We go down from university, and all the loop is on the highway. Then we go through the highway. The upper part is free. The lower part is not free. That means we should absolutely know how many cars will come in order to have the appropriate this card to go through the toll system. Okay, then we have to go through this loop, and as you see, we have 4 roadside units: the red one, the green, the pink one, and the yellow one. We have to go through this loop, and we have to execute a couple of test cases that I will show you later. And the loop should be traversed between 20-25 minutes, because we will be during the holiday. The highway should be quite not crowded. Okay, next slide, please. Now, the headquarters is on the campus. The campus will be also quite light, since we will not have students. That means we have our parking with many locations. We will have an RSU on the top of the building in order to have set up testing before going on the highway. That means we will have enough space to set up some tests. Next slide, please. And you will have this look on the building when you come, to not get lost. The building is this one. You can see it when you approaching the campus. Next slide, please. And what now? Go for technical part. We will have mainly 3 main services. We will have roadworks warning with DNM sent from RSUs. They will show some, let's say, some virtual roadworks warning, but maybe we'll get real ones. Because we had a kind of a trial last week with colleagues in France, and in the same day we had real roadworks warning. That's good. That was interesting, because we have shown this roadworks warning through RSUs, and we have checked if the cars could really display on the HMI the correct locations of the events. We will use from the RSUs the probe data, the probe vehicle data through CAM and DNMs. That means our RSUs, the SANF1, once they will collect data from the cars going through them. Maybe if you come with the RSUs, we not guarantee that we can put your RSUs through the highway, because it's quite sensitive. But on the campus, we can have your RSUs in order to collect data on the parking. We have also, the last thing is DNMs, in order to run the service other hazardous location notification, which could be used either by I2V or V2V. That is interesting also, in order, for example, to show there is an animal on the road, to send this event to other cars. That is the main services that we intend to test during these events. Next slide, please. I think this slide is just explaining what I said in the slide before. Just here, I think for people, what we intend by probe vehicle data is that with the RSUs will collect the data from the cars. I know that usually for many people, many countries, they only use CAMs, but here in France, we also use DNMs. That means we collect your DNMs and we'll handle them. This part will be very important later for the evaluation, because we will give you some reports on how your cars have been, let's say, touched by RSUs. And the last one is about the DNM for the OHLN service, in order to show, for example, extreme weather conditions, human on the road, and so on. As you see, we will handle V2V services, but I guess there is also some other countries they are not prepared. But anyway, we will use it. If you're prepared, that's fine. Otherwise, it's just kind of additional thing. Now, next slide, please. So for the test scenarios, we have mainly defined within the InterCor 5 main scenarios. The first one is quite easy. The idea is the vehicles should be registered in the same PKI than the RSU ones. That means for we will check if a message sent by RSU is collected by any car. That means we will see in foreign cars that they should not be able to display any message, because the RSUs are in France, the cars are in the Netherlands. Maybe when they receive a message, they should not display anything. But French cars will display some events. But in order to facilitate things, the second what you see in the second scenario, we will push a little bit the configuration in order to have an RSU, the French PKI, which is revoked by all of other foreign cars. That means also in this part, they will not display anything. But in order to check what is difference, later when we evaluate logins, login files, we should find that it has not been displayed because the checked that the foreign root CA is revoked. The third scenario is just a kind of it's always the same thing, but it's about the CRL is expired. That means at that time also the message should not be displayed. Now, the fourth scenario, at this scenario, foreign cars should be able to, the support to be able to display, if they have in their CTL, the French PKI, but since they're not supposed to get it, that means the French PKI is not trusted, they are not able to show any message. And the last one is when we update the CRL from the scenario 3 in scenario 5, we will update it. That means we will update it. That means we will remove that the French one is revoked. You should be able to display things. Now you may say, if we are foreign cars, we will not display nothing. Don't worry about that, because we have a second set of scenarios where we the foreign cars should be able to upload on their car the CTL containing the French PKI. The other option is our RSU will be registered on the same PKI than the cars. That's why we will have adapted scenarios for each country and for each other PKI. That's the main description of the scenarios. Now we can go to the next slide, please. Now the events that we have expected during this test phase, we will have six events. In the first LSU will send just a punctual one, just one event on one location. That means it should be displayed for a little period of time on the HMI. The second event is when we go through when we go almost near the toll system, we will have a neutralization of part of lane. It will be a roadworks warning, which is also I2V event. Afterwards, we will send extreme weather conditions from 2 RSUs, and we wanted to check if between those 2 RSUs, the event is continuously displayed, since the event is between those two RSUs, for example, simulating extreme weather condition, for example, wind or whatever. In the meantime, our colleagues from SANEF, they will send a road operator vehicle, which will send signal about winter maintenance, for example, which is moving through the road, which sending salting in progress. And then after going out let's say this loop at the end, we will have the last event, which is sent from the French vehicle, since it is able to send to use the V2V connections. It will send human presence on the word. Sorry, extreme has not to be here. Just copy past trouble. No HLN, human presence on the road, in order to check if the event is displayed on the following cars. That is the main events to experiment during TESTFEST. As you see, this set of events will be scheduled on the RSUs every hour. We will relaunch them in order to have really different events from the events in the slow time before, because we had an experiment last week. We have sent them for the whole day, and we have some people who could not display them again, since the events has been stored in the equipment. Thank you, and you can go to the next slide now. Now, as I said, just a kind of summary here. In scenario 1, all events should be displayed because there is no trouble. 2, 3, 4, since we have a kind of since the CRL is the CTL is revoked or is expired, or the trust chain is not guaranteed, during this scenario 2, 3, 4, anything has to be displayed. And the last scenario, since we will update the CRL, the event should be displayed. That's it. It's a general overview. And if you want to have more details, you can check later on the document which will be uploaded on Monday about the detailed test cases on each event, on each test case, and each period of the week. You will know exactly what is the test case that you have to run. And now about the login data, our colleague Bart Netten is in charge of the login part. He has the specification of login, which is uploaded on the project place, which will be available for other participants. Now, I wanted to tell you that during the TESTFEST, all participants we will let you use our tablets where we have a 3G connection, and we have an application where you push buttons when you see events, and you push again the button when the event is not displayed. In fact, we want to do so in order to have an idea about when the events have been displayed, if they have been displayed, when they started and when they stopped. In order to get, instead of getting a sheet of paper, we wanted to do so in order to have a real-time, let's say, tracking of the display of events. And also, if we have people getting their colleagues on the headquarters, they can follow the displaying of events real time on their computer, because this application will send all the events through 3G to our server, where you can track your car. That is, I think, for my side. Is it enough? I don't know. Peter, I think for my side.
I think then afterwards there is Munira's part, and up to now, well, beside the questions why there is no screen, which was caused by my error at the start, there's one question. It says it's from Campbell Ilroy, and says about slide 6, but the question is, where will this logging format document be available? I think it will be once we have it, we'll put it there in the area of the TESTFEST. So basically, that
exactly, because Peter, it is already on Project Place.
Yeah, not on Project Place, on the internet website of InterCor, because Project Place is only available to us.
That's what I'm saying. We have to move it. We have to move it today because it's already ready. We have just to move it to the InterCor, because I had a message from Nathan yesterday.
So this will happen beginning of the next week. And then I have a second question, more practical question of Peter Hierholzer. He says, I'm coming alone. Driving and operating a tablet in parallel is not a good idea. I agree with that, because it's dangerous. Are you providing an assistant for operating the tablet? I guess that is not actually planned, but I think we will have a few observers, so I would say we can probably arrange, we will have interested parties to drive with Peter and push the buttons on the tablet, but that we have to see during the event then. So
Peter, I wanted just to say that we have offered these facilities because I heard that in Dordrecht people have always some assistance with a sheet of paper saying yes, no. Since you can do it on paper, you can do it on tablet. But if you don't have any assistant, you could not use either sheet of paper or tablet. Now, since there is some people, we have many colleagues present here, we try to manage assistance for sure. But I know I didn't ask people to drive and to use a tablet, definitely not.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll find probably a solution for that during the event itself. So then, okay. And Peter says, I'm doing it typically in post-processing, no paper. So I guess we can come around that problem with, so we get around that. So I go to the next slide, and then I would ask Munira to take over.
Thank you, Arsene. Thank you, Peter. In this slide, I give an example of a test scenario. In this picture, we can see a French car sending a secured message signed with a valid authorization ticket issued by a revoked authorization authorities. So logically, the car, when it comes to the TESTFEST event, bring with it the RCA certificate of her own PKI, its own AEA authorization authority, and a pool of authorization ticket. For this test scenario, of course, we need a CRL with a revoked AA, for example, for CRL France, it must contain the authorization authority revoked on the CRL. And of course, a valid CTL with all involved countries. In this test, the car, the Netherlands car, shall neglect the message because it's not a valid message. We can move to the next slide, please. Here I give you an example of certificate trust list that will be used. In the left, in the right side, it's the data structure as it's defined in scope at F project, and we can find this specification in scope 2446 deliverable. and it's online and it's public. So here we have the data structure. An example of this CTL is given in left side, which is our French CTL containing currently the RCA, scope RCA with 3 enrollment authority and our common authorization authority and all foreign RCA that we trust, and also access point of distribution center distributing the CRL and the CTL, and access point of 3 enrollment authority and authorization authority. The next slide shows the CRL data structure on the right side. An example of this CRL is given in the left side. As we are generating this in scope at F, I remind that we are following the data structure of CRL given by scope at F in 4226 deliverable for CRL as well for CTL. The next slide, please. So, forecasters who intend to participate to this event, they need a preloaded certificate or preloaded authorization ticket, as well as the InterCor CRL and InterCor CTL in each station, and must be ready to use it, of course. To get this authorization ticket needs a registration phase for mobility station. It must be on home PKI, and uploading CRL and CTL in every ETS station. I remind also that in this TESTFEST we are compliant to the security header and security certificate format version 121 of SC standard 103097. Our CRL and CTL format are compatible and compliant to scope at F format, which is provided in 2446 deliverable, and we are using specific service permissions used and defined in scope at F project. The next slide, please. Here we give an example how we can deal with all these test sets, because last week we made a blank test here in France. For TESTFEST number 1, or scenario number 1, we provided an online distribution center folder where we can find CRL related to scenario 1 and CTL related to scenario 1, and of course authorities certificate. And for example, the second scenario about revoked authorization ticket, we provided the CRL with containing the authorization authority, French authorization authority, and CTL to and valid CTL and all authority certificate on distribution center 6. So for every test scenario, we provide an online distribution center for French cars and for French ETS stations. It's our way how we deal actually currently with these TESTFEST scenarios. It could help participants also to do the same thing, and to for every test scenario we provide its related folder containing all test sets. For the security test 5, of course, it's about CRL update. So since the first scenario we have a valid CRL, and the third scenario is about an expired CRL, so the scenario number 5 can be achieved by making scenario 3 and then the scenario 1 without providing a distribution center or related folder for this scenario. The next slide, please. Here we are trying to answer questions that we got after the first webinar. Main question was about how we can participate without home PKI. So iDynamic will offer a test of set of certificate for our participants without their home PKI. Participants shall send their RCA and authorization authorities certificate before the end of March, because we have some constraints with our car manufacturers here. They need like 2 or 3 weeks to put and to configure this in their boxes before in order to prepare the test test. That's why we fixed it the end of March like a deadline to receive all the RCA of participants who intend to participate to this session. For each scenario, I remind that appropriate TL and CRF file needs to be preloaded, and participants should have their own mechanism or their way to deal with this test set. We choose to put it in like folders DC1, DC2, and you can make it and you can make it choose another way, but just here we give an example. So participants should have their own mechanism to switch from one status to another or from one scenario to another, and to preload file as of configuration, and maybe to prepare many updated images or many updated adapted, let's say, images. For example, a device with for test scenario 1, another device for test scenario 2, and when switching from one scenario to another, just switch from one device or one box to another with its specific configuration. Next slide, please. Now I give the floor to Hassan, maybe, or Peter, to continue the slide. Yes.
Because there had been 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one is from Ivo Hermann, and he asks, can you provide some test CTL and CRL files so that we can verify that the loading of the files is correct?
Yes. You can find via this link what I showed on the slide. Yes, on the slide before, and you can send me an email, and I will send you an example. Yes, with pleasure, no problem.
And then there's a question from Ola Martin Lückia. Is the document describing the SSP usage available?
It must be available, yes. Yes, I don't know if it's online or not, but it must be available, yes. Because without this SSP, it will be hard to manage this interoperability.
So who is going to produce that document? And is that...
It's already produced
okay,
for
so
participants,
and
InterCor participants. They have access to this document, but others, I don't know.
Okay, good. We discuss that later offline, and then I get it onto the internet. So thank you very much. These were the questions so far. So I hand over, thank you, Monira. So I hand over to Hassan. Is going to talk now about the schedule and some of the program as well.
Thank you, Peter. As you see, that's pity, because it's time to technical questions. Now the rest is about the scheduling, about how things will be run. Okay, there's the schedule. As you see, the yellow parts are really about working. Let's say as you see, in the first day we'll have some introduction about some recommendations. And then the first half day will be testing on the parkings. And then we start working this on the road in the second half day. Monday afternoon, we'll run the first test scenario, which is about this, everything should be displayed. And then the other half days, the four following, for each one will be dedicated to one test scenario. As you see, it may be a long time, but we have experimented last week, and we see that we really need sometimes 2 or 3 tools, three traversing the trajectory, and that could take time to go there, to pay back, to correct bugs, and so on. And then, as you see, in the whole day, we have collecting results. That means when you go through the road, we will give you a USB stick where we hope that you will give back us your logins. We will insert them in a server, and we will have some handling, easy handling from something. For example, if you don't display, why? Maybe if you have appropriate logs, we can check that because the certificate is not ready, because the certificate has not uploaded or whatever. All these things are done in parallel with collecting results. And then the Thursday, we do not have specific scenario. In fact, these 2 half days will be dedicated to any correction of bugs or any specific testing. For example, if people come with their own RSU, maybe at this half day, we try with our colleagues from SANEF, if we can have these RSUs really on the road in order to check how these RSUs behave with the others. For this, every day we have a 1 hour debriefing at the end of the day in order to check what happened, if things are all right or not. And then every day mainly we will have a kind of social event. We have a welcome reception with we'll have first day. The second day we were it is pending, but we should have a welcome reception with City Hall. And then Wednesday we will visit Cellar Champagne. And the last day we have social dinner for InterCor partners. Now the next slide, all what I said here is re-explained. That could be worth for people who have not followed the webinar. Recall here all what I said before when I was talking about this picture in slide 26. And if you go to the next slide, it was about this social events that people who have kind of networking. And then some pictures about the places that we intend to visit. The next slide, please.
The touristic part of the webinar.
That's the Palais du Taux, which is one known in the past for kings and so on. And we have the cathedral, which is one of the main. That's the cellar. We go on the underground 300 meters down to see how bottle of champagnes are stored. And then the last picture is about the cathedral, which is one of the most attractive parts in our city. I think for this there is no comment. You have just to see it close. And then later on we have some questions about do we need to be there all the whole week? It's up to you. But as you see, if people know that their cars behaves normally in nominal situation, I think I would say that Thursday and Wednesday are more appropriate for kind of exceptions, because in those 2 days we will check this if this no trust chain, if there is revocation, if there is expiration, and so on. If you want to come with onboard units, if you bring a car, that will be fine. Otherwise, that will be hard, because you will just be able to test your onboard unit on the parking. with cars without moving. That could be one option, but it could be worth it to use it on the road. Obviously, as we said, we cannot provide a test vehicle, fortunately. And is it mandatory? Is it recommended to share your test data? Because if you share your test data, that will be worth it, because we have some tools that will help you to extract some information about, for example, if things have succeeded or not, and whatever. Peter, I don't know if you want to stop a bit here or to answer questions or not.
Yes, I think that's a good idea, because there are 3 more questions. One of them is of Alexander Zeszowski. I hope I'm pronouncing that not too badly. And I think it's again more addressed to Munira. And it reads, what foreign PKIs will be in the event?
Will be in?
In the event, is it known who is supposed to provide a Dutch PKI that is signed certificate of Dutch vehicles?
RWD, I think. I just received the RCA. And if you are asking a question about, since we have cross test and test at the same time on the CTL, we will update it with RCA Spain, Portugal, France, Dutch, maybe Belgium, Flanders, and Austriatic.
Because there's just another question popping up from Peter Hierholz, and he asks, who is providing the PKI for German vehicles or car-to-car PKI?
I heard that there is a car-to-car coming, but I thought that they have their own, because we had last webinar someone saying that they use car-to-car PKI.
Sorry, I forgot to mention car-to-car RCA also, which will be trusted during this test, because I already received a demand from them to, I don't know whom, that they will participate. But the question here, who is providing the PKI for German vehicle car-to-car PKI? Yes, they can participate by their own PKI and send us before the end of this month their RCA and their authorization authority certificate also, and to put it on our certificate trust list. And they IDRMIC also can provide them a test set during the test phase, and they will not need to choose their own PKI. And this test set, it must be preloaded and not uploaded, so we will give just send it by mail or on the USB key.
Okay, and then there was one more question of Peter Hierholzer, and that is about the messages that will be sent by the roadside units, if there are any PCAPs or XML are available. And I think there was a PCAP already available, wasn't it? That was on the internet.
We can give you what they mean. They need to have samples. If you're thinking about samples, we can bring to you from our people, our colleagues, SANEF, we ask them to have some PCAPs. If you need that, we can send you some. Is it the question?
I think that's the question. The question exactly reads, are PCAPs or XMLs of the messages sent available? If yes, where? So is it that we can put them on the website, or should people ask for them individually and get them sent then per email?
No, we can put them on the website, but we had already some PCAPs. Did you check? Because they are already
one PCAP on the.
Exactly, yeah. You should check. We have put there some PCAPs because some people have asked them in the first webinar, and we have provided them at that time. But now, if you think they are not the one that you're looking for, you can ask more, because for these issues, if you need some specific ones, you ask, and we will ask for them, and we put them on the website for all other people.
Okay, so I hope that answers Peter's questions. But he asked where they are. I thought we had uploaded them. So Peter, I will check after the webinar and send you the link. If not, I will check that again and then come back to you. And then there was one question of Alan Stevens, that's more on the organization. It says, I think I previously saw an open workshop on Thursday. And actually in the first webinar we were still thinking about having a workshop on the Thursday, but this idea has been abandoned, so there will be no workshop. And then the question is, will there be some summary of the week's results presented sometime? Of course, at the final debriefing on the Thursday, there will be some preliminary results being presented, and then later on there will be a report on the TESTFEST, which is an InterCor document, but will be publicly available. So with that, I maybe continue, because there are some slides on that actually. So this is about the expected outcome of the event. So for the participants, it's of course the idea that they prove that the service of their OBUs is interoperability, and with the evaluation of the log files that they may provide, they will get results, further results. And in general, so that is for the InterCor projects objective, it's the proof that the service under test are internationally interoperable. And then there will be a TESTFEST report, and this will describe the test site and the test scenarios. It's basically going to be a bit similar like the plan of action, and will summarize the results and the lessons learned, and also that will be made available through the InterCor website. And what already exists is the plan of action that's available for all participants, and it has the schedule, the test protocols, the preconditions, some visitor information for us, and that is constantly being updated. And I think Hassan said there will be also a new version of the technical documents, especially on the test scenario and test cases. I think there's something planned, and some PKI PCAPs, and the references, so there's a link to the scoop specification and the ETSI standards, and some organization stuff is there as well. And I think, well, let's say stay here. All of that is will be on the internet website, and as there were many questions about that, so I think I will ask Andrea to send out a mail to all participants to give the exact link to the right page within the InterCor project, so that people actually find the information, because there seemed to be a bit of confusion there. And then we have a last slide. I think that is again Hassan to talk about that, because he has some warning here. So Hassan, can you please...
Thank you. In fact, now we want to schedule properly the test cases and the scenarios and so on. We know mainly what you want to do, but if we know exactly who will come with what cars, because we need to know exactly the number of cars, because we, as I said to you, we have to go through a tolling system that we will get from our colleagues from SANEF, the access cards, that if I know that there is 15, I will ask for 15, but in the day when they come, if we have 20, you should know that the 5 remaining cars will not have any access. They will maybe pay for their own. That's important for the organizational point of view. And the second thing is, if, for example, we have LSUs come in for example, from Austria, they are signed with Austrian PKI. That is important for us because it's a issue. It's not moving through the road. That means we will try to adapt the scenarios in order to take profit of the presence of various cars signed by many PKIs. That is important for us to note. That's why we will close the registration today. We will have the list of people participating. Then please give us a feedback response ASAP to a couple of questions about this organization issues. That's what we wanted to say about this, because it's very important for us, for the organization. And that was the only thing that I wanted to say.
Hello, this is Guy from SANEF. Do you hear me?
Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So I wanted to add just one point that Hassan already highlighted. So yes, we need to know how many cars will be driving along the motorway. So in order to provide a card to pass the tolls, otherwise the vehicles which do not have the card will have to pay the toll, and it's approximately €2.50 per trip. So it's not that expensive, but after maybe 10 trips, it represents some money so to be paid. So just please register and let Hassan or the Peter the number of participants, so that will be easier for us to determine how many cars we should prepare. And second thing, it's for the partner that will provide or bring a roadside unit. Unfortunately, it's impossible to connect any external roadside unit on the SANEF network. We cannot connect them to our network for safety reasons. So it needs really some care to do that. You cannot, of course, stop on the motorway in a car. If you have the roadside unit in a car, you cannot stop on the motorway and just broadcast messages while you are stopped. There are only two places where you could do that. It's either on the parking area after the Tessi toll plaza. So there is a toll plaza which is on the east of the test site, called Tessi, and there are parking areas on both sides, and there a vehicle can stop for a long period and so broadcast messages. And the other option is on the west of the test site, near the roadside unit of Tinqueux. In fact, it will be inside the operation center of SANEF. And there you can stop and stay also for a long period. Well, I don't know if signals transmitted from a car will be well received from the motorway. So I don't know how far the signal can be received correctly on the motorway when it is transmitted from a car emitting either from the operation center or from the toll plaza. But let's maybe we can try and see if it's working. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. It was exactly the two locations that I was thinking about, because I agree with you totally. For security reasons and safety reasons, we will not put them anywhere, something else, somewhere else than these two locations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that information. So I think now we're at the end of the webinar. So you see here the email addresses of me and Hassan. So you can always send us a mail. There is the website of the InterCor project. and there's a section on PKI TESTFEST, and there you can always look for new information, but I think after Hassan, as he said, we will provide new information at the beginning of next week. We are going to trigger the processes within InterCor to have that uploaded onto the website also, and then maybe we send around a mail to give the exact link to all the participants to avoid confusion and that people do not find the information. So now I have no further questions in the questions box, so I invite you all now to ask further questions if you have any. I know with typing it takes a moment before the questions arrive. So please go ahead and ask whatever you need to ask. Well, let's wait a few minutes. Maybe we have the case that Hassan and Munira provided you with such comprehensive information that everything is clear to you now, or we stunned you in such a confusion that you can't think of any question right now. Anyway, in that case, you can always send them later via email. Ah, there is one coming. From Ivo Hermann asking, to get test set of certificates for participants without home PKI, should we write an email to Munira? I think that would be the best option, maybe to keep Arsene and me in the loop, in copy, so that we can follow up on such information. Is that correct, Munira, that you are providing these certificates?
Yes.
The only option.
Yes. I think we can put the organizer of webinar of today, all of us together on the same mail, and if there is another question, yes, we will reply on it. So if it's about PKI, I will answer. If it's about services and so on, maybe Asen will answer, and the organization, also you and Asen.
Yes. And then there's a question, where exact is the PCAP file on the website? Maybe, as we don't need that anymore, I can try to go to the internet, and I hope you can see that. So because there should be somewhere the information. Was it here? No, there is the. No, there is not the PCAP. I thought we had uploaded that.
In fact, I know the project place, there is a PKI section, for sure.
Yeah, in the project place it is, yeah, I know that. But I thought we had uploaded it here. So there is the plan of action, the test scenarios for the PKI security test phase, the test case specification, PKI. It's actually not up there. So I guess I have to ask Andrea to edit here on this side or to rearrange it. So we will put that up, and then you will have access to it. So my plan is that I tell Andrea, as the registration phase is over now, to send a mail with the right links maybe beginning of next week. So you see here, if you can see it on the screen, in that area about TESTFEST and PKI TESTFEST, you should get all the information. So I thought we had uploaded the PCAP, but obviously we had missed out on that. Sorry for that. And
Alexander, there's another question.
There's another question for those that do not have access to Project Place. Can the PCAP be made available elsewhere? Yes, that's what I just said. Yes, we're going to make it available on the InterCor website.
But you missed another question, Peter, about Alexander. He's talking about slot for driving.
Okay. No, you can. The question is, will there be time slots for driving for each company, or is it possible to try several drives within one test case session? Should that be necessary? Yes. During the one session, you can drive as often as you want, and companies can drive in parallel at the same time. There's no problem with that.
No, in fact, we need that. If you want to check interoperability, they have to drive together, you know, to exchange messages. You understand? Otherwise, yeah, it's not worth it.
So last chance for asking questions, because if there are no further questions, I would say we can close the webinar. No, I don't see any further questions. So then I would say thank you very much for your attention. We will upload the slides of the webinar and also the recording to the internet so that you have access to it. So sorry that the first few minutes were without slides showing, but that was to my inability to use the webinar correctly. So, but I hope this recording can still be of use for you if you want to give it to some of your colleagues. And up again, there was no further question now, so I invite you again, if you have questions, send emails to Arsene, Munira and me, and then we try as best as possible to answer them. And still no further questions, so I would say we can close the webinar now, and I thank you for your attention and hope to see you all on the 23rd of April in Reims, where we can do some testing then together.